rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. That's right. I am here. I am your host, Rick. Well, folks, the awfuls, they want to leave. Yeah, a whole 40% of them, according to this one poll. I'll get to that here in just a little bit, including what the awful means. Anyway, we'll get to that in just a few moments. Also, too, I've got some more information on Democrat policies, of course, that are now starting to come to roost. And if I get all the way to the end, I got a scathing thing from Dan Bongino toward Thomas Massie, who apparently was trying to make it sound like the FBI wasn't doing their job. And, well, Dan brought the receipts, like he always does. All of that is up tonight, but first, let's go ahead and get our Pledge of Allegiance out of the way. So, if you are of mine, please stand, remove your hat, if you're wearing one, like me. Place your hand over your heart and follow along with Bam. That's right, it is Bam's turn. Follow along with Bam as she recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and of course I thank you, Bam, for that wonderful rendition of the pledge. If you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself reciting or performing the pledge in your style. Take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file, and send it off to me. Send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online, and I will get you into the rotation looking for number 21, okay? Number 21. All right. Oh, I also have it on Heavenly Authority that if you use the share option, if you're recording it on your phone, you can use the share option and send it off to me. Send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. All right. Let's get on with tonight's headline sponsor, which is I'm wearing one of their fabulous shirts. That's right. I'm wearing one of the fabulous men's cotton polos that they don't shrink that much. I mean, I only had one out of the 6 that I had that shrunk a little bit. But generally speaking, they don't shrink. They don't color fade. And they are fantastic American-themed shirts. You can go and get yours at theflagshirt.com. That's theflagshirt, all one word, .com. You can go and check out all of their styles. Men's, women's, made in the USA, kids' styles. They have accessories in the fantastic red, white, and blue. They also have some patriotic outfits they've put together. They've got, like, matching men's and women's outfits. Those are kind of fun, especially if you're, put together. Free Chevy corrected me. He said that the shirts don't necessarily shrink, but you may expand over time. Anyway, go and check them out at theflagshirt.com. And, of course, if you order $75 or more of their product, they will give you free shipping. That's right, $75 or more on their product, and you get free shipping on your order. But I know not everybody wants to order $75 or more of stuff. Maybe you only want one shirt. Maybe you only want a small accessory in the red, white, and blue, like sunglasses or something like that. And you're not ready to spend $75 or more. That's okay, though, because I can help you out. I am able to help you if you go over to flagshirt.americanperspective.online. That's flagshirt.americanperspective.online. You go there and you'll be presented with a coupon code that you can copy and paste into the promo code box at checkout at theflagshirt.com. Once again, go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online and you will be presented with a coupon code that you can copy and paste into the promo code box at checkout at theflagshirt.com and get $5 off your order. Go to theflagshirt.com and get yourself patriotized. Alrighty. Well, the White House has released a cost estimate of the 43-day shutdown. And apparently the Democrat-driven shutdown, don't tell me it was Republicans. It's not Republicans. The minute you say that, you basically out yourself as a leftist lunatic moron. It was a Democrat shutdown. And the Democrat shutdown cost the government $15 billion a week. That's billion with a B. And apparently the shutdown also screwed up statistics gathering, like the unemployment rate. Because according to the White House, the unemployment rate for October may never be known. So the National Economic Council Director, Kevin Hassett, said on Thursday that the Democrat-forced government shutdown costs the country about $15 billion per week and is expected to knock anywhere from 1 to 1.5% off the GDP growth in the fourth quarter. Hassett spoke with White House reporters on Thursday morning, hours after President Trump signed the continuing resolution to reopen the government through the end of January. He outlined the economic impact of the 43-day shutdown and that what it is going to have on the nation. So, yeah. It says their current estimate is that 60,000 Americans that are not government workers have lost their jobs because of the reduced economic output. Following up on another question, he said that heading into the quarter, GDP growth is expected to hit the 3 to 4% benchmark, which would have been on par with the previous two quarters. But because of the shutdown, now we're looking at about something that might be roughly half of that. Well, So anyway, Hassett also said on Thursday that there's some data with the September jobs report potentially coming next week, but noted that October unemployment rate may never be known. The October employment report, he said, for the payroll side, will be able to be calculated, but the household survey wasn't completed, and so we'll get sort of a half of a jobs report. He added, most everything else, I think, will be able, as in we will, be able to concoct the correct number after we look back, but we will never know what the unemployment rate was in October because there wasn't a household survey. These shutdowns. Why? Yeah. Anyway. All right. Well, we have Letitia James. We have Adam Shifty Schiff. We have, a couple other people, I'm sure, that have been kind of mentioned on this whole mortgage fraud train. Well, now, Eric Swalwell, Fang Fang Bang Banger. Yeah, him. He is now under a mortgage fraud probe as well. So, yeah. Well, the Department of Justice has opened a probe into Eric Swalwell over alleged mortgage fraud. This, according to Fox News. In response, Swalwell said that he was not surprised to be targeted by Trump and vowed to keep speaking out while pursuing his lawsuit. Yeah, well, you know, you probably shouldn't even be in government because you slept with a known Chinese spy there. Bang, bang, fang, 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 bang, banger. Whatever. Anyway. Yeah. And Swalwell says, like James Comey and John Bolton, Adam Schiff, and Lisa Cook, Letitia James, and the dozens more to come, I refuse to live in fear in what was once the freest country in the world. It's still that way. It's still that way. I promise you. We are still the freest country in the world, you dumbass. Anyway. So, yeah, the probe was reported first by NBC, will investigate allegations of millions of dollars in loans and refinancing that were based on Swalwell declaring that his primary residence, once again, was in Washington, D.C. You know, you're supposed to be a resident of the state that you represent, and in order to be considered a resident of that state, you, by law, need to live in that state at least 6 months plus out of the year. So how can these people get away with this idea of saying that they're primary residents? Because by definition, living within a certain state's borders for 6 months plus out of the year pretty much basically says that that is your primary residence. That you're not running off to some, you know, hidey-hole Holloway or vacation spot on the beaches, somewhere. Your primary residence is the place that you live in for the majority of the time. And so if you're sitting here claiming that your primary residence, the place that you live in for the majority of a year, is someplace other than the state that you are representing, I wonder if that kind of kicks in some other things that maybe are having challenges, like, you know, potentially that they could be constitutionally kicked out of Congress. If these people are claiming, and I don't really care about Letitia James, although I would love to see her get what's coming to her, because she claimed that, you know, Donald Trump lied on his applications, even though he never actually did. So anyway, the point that I'm making here is I'm trying to figure out where these people, I mean, they shouldn't even be legally capable of representing, say, the state of California in the case of Adam Schiff and Swallowswell. I mean, Bang Bang and Fang Fang guy. Oh, actually, I think he's even Fartswell, too, come to think about it, because he let fly a little gastrointestinal fortitude on camera one time, if I recall correctly. Anyway. Yep, not to mention the fact that by doing this, of course, by lying about the fact that, you know, I'm a representative of the state of California, or whatever kind of state I'm from. I'm a representative from there, but I don't live there all the time because my primary residence is actually in Washington, D.C. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. Bad impression, very bad impression of that guy, but I got to tell you, these people, they have absolutely no remorse about gaming the system whatsoever. Which, by the way, that brings me to Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi apparently over the course of her entire career has had a return on her investments of something like 1,600 plus percentage. Meaning that she is more successful than just about any day trader or any other Wall Street trader in the world. How did she get there, I wonder? Yeah. Her investments apparently have a return that is higher than so many others. It just kind of begs the question, what the hell did she know, and when did she know it? Anyway. Speaking of failures of Democrats, yeah. This one won't surprise you. I mean, California operates in a deficit. They're like $8 trillion in the hole or something like that. I don't know what the number is, but I know they're deep in the hole. Apparently, Maryland has a $1.4 billion. Let's see. So this is hundreds, thousands, millions. Yeah, $1.4 billion in a deficit. And yet Maryland, Maryland has been raising taxes. So this was a newly released estimate that they're staring down a budget deficit for the fiscal year of 2027 that will have something like structural deficits of $753 million in 2025, $259 million in 2026, and almost $1.2 billion in 2027. Now, state lawmakers apparently previously projected a $321 million surplus for the start of fiscal year 2027 after finalizing budget process when the 2025 legislative session ended, according to the Daily Record. But they're still in the hole. Maryland Senate Minority Leader Stephen S. Hershey Jr., who is a Republican, said that the state's looming budget crisis was created, quote, by reckless spending, failed leadership, and political posturing, according to the Washington Post report on Thursday. Hershey also asserted that he thinks Maryland Governor Wes Moore, who may possibly be throwing his hat in the ring for the 2028 presidential candidate, has become overly consumed with national politics instead of addressing the state's budget shortfall, per the Washington Post. Hershey said, quote, instead of confronting the state's looming multi-billion-dollar deficit, the governor is consumed with national politics and partisan redistricting schemes. This is the inevitable result of one-party rule where accountability disappears and fiscal reality takes a back seat to ambition. In addition to holding the governor's mansion and all statewide offices, Democrats also hold supermajorities in both houses of the Maryland legislature, controlling more than 70% of seats in each chamber. And see, this is what happens, folks. A Democrat and a socialist and a Marxist and any other ist that you want to add on there has never met a tax that they did not like. And I guarantee you that when the tax gets put into play, if they say, it's only temporary, it will not be temporary. It'll be put in as a temporary measure, but then attempted to be a permanent measure, which is exactly what happened with the Obamacare crap that Democrats tried to shut the government down for. So, yeah. Anyway, good luck, Maryland. That's all I'm going to say is good luck. And, of course, good luck to Seattle, because that socialist, who is potentially going to be even worse than Ma'am Danny over in New York, that socialist moron got elected by a small margin but did make it. You will not see me in Seattle ever again if I can avoid it. I'm just going to say this. I'm just pointing that out. So back to Maryland. David Romans, DLS's Fiscal and Policy Analysis Coordinator, said, quote, the outlook is a lot worse for fiscal year 27 than it was at the end of the session. It's about $1.5 billion deficit versus a small projected surplus when we ended the session. Romans claim that Maryland's general fund revenues have been negatively impacted by President Donald Trump's big beautiful bill. He said the bottom line is it was assumed at the end of session that we would get that additional $300 million a year in general fund revenues from the one big beautiful bill being passed. We actually ended up with a negative impact of about $71 million in fiscal year 27. So they're trying to blame it on Trump. This is part of the problem, folks. I don't seem to recall in the Constitution it saying that you need to be able to, like, federal taxes need to get distributed to states. I don't recall seeing that in the federal Constitution, that the money for the federal Constitution is supposed to go to the federal items in Article 1, Section 8. I don't seem to recall the federal government having a requirement that, oh, yeah, if the federal government has a surplus, you need to, like, distribute that throughout the states equally. No, it doesn't say that. It doesn't say that. So, yeah. Apparently, Maryland does have a state constitutional obligation to pass a balanced budget. So they're going to have to address this. And is the Maryland Senate President, Bill Ferguson, who's a Democrat, said in a statement that the highest and best use of the General Assembly's time is keeping Maryland on strong fiscal footing by lowering costs for Maryland families and addressing the $1.4 billion structural deficit so we can meet our constitutional obligation to pass a balanced budget next session. Yep. So, however, that being said, the governor is still pushing for the fact that Maryland may redraw its congressional maps mid-decade to try and get rid of course, Republican Representative Andy Harris, who is the only Republican member in the state's congressional delegation. Yeah, they want to get rid of the guy. And all I'm going to say, folks, is if you live in one of these states, and I do, you might want to think about following in the footsteps of those awfuls and get the hell out. Oh, we'll get to more on that in just a second, but before I go and take a break, let me just tell you about this. Apparently there was a flight, because you know how the Republicans in the House of Representatives, and we're back to the federal government, the House of Representatives had to fly back to D.C. quickly so that they could pass the continuing resolution and get it to Trump's desk to open up the federal government as soon as possible. Well, apparently there was a cross-country flight that was carrying 4 Arizona congressmen, and it had to make an emergency landing on Wednesday because some idiot moron who is, described here as a furious passenger, but I guarantee you, once you hear what this person said, you'll know exactly what these people are. Apparently, this furious passenger erupted in midair, shouting, "We live in a fascist state!" Yeah, stunned travelers were kind of like, what? This American Airlines flight from Phoenix to Washington, D.C. was diverted to Kansas City so that crew members could remove the unruly woman. Representative Greg Stanton, who is a Democrat, confirmed on X that he was on board alongside GOP reps Eli Crane, Andy Biggs, and Paul Gosar. Stanton wrote on X, "We're making an emergency stop in Kansas City to remove a disruptive passenger. None of my colleagues is the disruptor." He was kind of making a joke, and he pretty much said that the Freedom Caucus apparently is losing its mojo. Yeah. Well, after it landed, after the plane landed, the woman was escorted off by police. And here's what happened. Take a look.
Sorry, folks. Yes. We live in a fascist state.
So for those of you on the audio portion of the program, that was I'm going to characterize her as an older white woman, but she was obviously fairly affluent, I guess, in a way, because she didn't look like she was, hurting for any kind of money. She got this like major big ass coat on that that cost them like all kinds of money. Anyway, this big old puffy long coat or whatever, and as she walks out, she says, "Sorry, folks, but we live in a fascist state," as she's being escorted out by the police. Oh, my goodness gracious. Folks, you keep wondering why I'm using the terminology awful. Well, there's a reason for it. Here's the definition in Urban Dictionary. Awful is not AWEFUL, not AWE as in awe, or full as in FUL, or AWFUL, for me to correct my spelling because I said it was AWEFUL first. But that's not right. Awful is normally spelled AWFUL. But awful is an acronym. It stands for Affluent, White, Female, Liberal. Now here's some of the characteristics of the awful. Ooh, whoever came up with this one was really good. But ages are between 18 and 80, with the primary years being between 22 and 45. Now, an awful is the precursor to the more colloquially known Karen. It is a person who is from a upper to upper middle class background. Basically a consequence-free life. They're college educated. And they are college educated in fields with lousy earning prospects. In other words, your gender studies professors, your, transgender ideology follower or whatever. I don't know. Whatever it is. Anyway, they apparently work in academia, government, HR, journalism, law, NGOs, think tanks, those kinds of things. And they are supposed to be part of the quote-unquote cult of nice, following political correctness. Except there's only one problem. None of these people are actually nice, because the minute that you say that you're a conservative or that you're a Christian conservative, or if they observe you being a white male over 40 and happens to be a Christian conservative, yeah, your ass is basically the enemy and you should be vanquished immediately, according to these, quote, cult of nice people. But that being said, they obviously support whatever the current thing is. Doesn't matter what, whether they believe in it or not. Doesn't matter whether it's a contradiction from any of their other claimed principles and values. Doesn't make any difference, because to them, it's whatever the current thing is. Whether it's LGBTQ plus TIA minus divided by sign, whatever, abortion, gun control, debt cancellation. They're going to make the cause, obviously, about them and their struggles. In other words, that there's no blame there. So, yeah. Anyway, they support what's known as the anti-icky things and people. And what's meant by that is they'll do anti-icky things, such as the soft bigotry of low expectations that they do on persons of color. For an example, black people can't get ID to be able to vote. Anyway, there's all kinds of other things here. You can take a look at it under the Urban Dictionary. But yeah, anyway. The thing is that these people, these awfuls, have apparently decided that living in the United States is no longer a good prospect for them. And I'll get to that in just a moment. But first, let me tell you about this wonderful elixir that I start every single day with. It's known as coffee. I put it in my coffee cup, my 16-ounce coffee cup. That is a gift from my children. Says father like no other. I love it. And if you still haven't tried 1775 coffee, well, now is your shot. The 1775 starter kit has dropped. There's a small number of units available. You're getting the bold dark roast that hits hard. You'll get the smooth medium roast in the pack, as well as the Vitality Mushroom Coffee for clean energy and laser focus with no crash. All of these coffees are single origin, small batch, toxin-free, and mold-free. Plus, you're also getting my personal favorite, gold spoon clip, because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. You'll also be receiving a frother that is strong enough not only to stir up your coffee, but also your mother-in-law's opinions. Let's be honest, it doesn't take much to get her started. Anyway, you'll also receive a black 1775 tumbler. It's $170 worth of coffee and gear, yours for the low, low price of $99. This is for the ones who have been watching 1775 coffee blow up on Rumble and are wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler alert, it is. Go to, these are the numbers, 1775. So 1775coffee.com/studio. For those of you that don't know, the / is the question mark key on your keyboard. So go to 1775coffee, all one word, .com/studio, STUDIO, and grab your starter kit before they are gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something, just like Rumble does. Go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit today. All right. Well, as far as the awfuls leaving the U.S., we have some record numbers. According to a Gallup poll that just came out, there's a desire to migrate among younger American women. And it's apparently quadrupled in the last decade. Now, this is the second straight year that about 1 in 5 Americans in total say that they would like to leave the U.S. and move permanently to another country, if they could. Now, this heightened desire is primarily driven by younger women. In 2025, according to this study, 40% of women aged 15 to 44 say that they would move abroad permanently if they had the opportunity. Here is the, here, let me just get this over here, and there is the chart. Let me scoot it up so you guys can see it a little better, rather than it being in the middle of my head. Women aged 15 to 44 outclass the total U.S. adults at 20%. Women at 15 to 44, 40% of them want to go. Yeah. So the percentage of younger women that are wanting to move to another country first rose decisively in 2016, which apparently corresponds to the final year that President Barack Obama's second term. So apparently they were so enamored by Barack Obama, which again, this is part of the reason why they're awfuls. Affluent, white, female, liberal. Anyway, That year, the Gallup survey in the U.S. in June and July, after both parties' presumptive nominees were set for the November election, in which Donald Trump went on to win, the desire to migrate continued to climb afterward, hitting 44% in Joe Biden's last year in office and remaining near that level in 2025. Yeah. So, women apparently seem to think that, hey, I want to get out. I want to go. And I'm going to tell you this right now. If you want to go, go, please. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord splits you. I'm just saying. Because you're actually the problem, folks. These women, these affluent female white liberals, I got the acronym wrong. But anyway, these women don't seem to understand. They're the problem. They're the ones that are bringing all of this angst and worry and fear and all this other stuff here. It's been shown predominantly that the Democrat Party itself, which is turned socialist, Marxist, whatever, is basically driven by these affluent white female liberals. The ones that have gone off to college to get those transgender basket weaving and, gender studies and whatever other kinds of made-up frickin' degrees, 4-year degrees. And they sit there and they expect as soon as you come out of college, oh, because I have a degree, I get 6 figures, right? No. Yeah. Well, what's interesting is that it seems to be just here in the U.S. that it's not across the board. Like, it's not across all of the other, what do they call it? They call them other advanced economies. There's 38 member countries of an organization called the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. It's called OECD. And the percentage of younger women who say that they would like to migrate has held steady throughout the years, typically averaging between 20 and 30% in all of those other 38 member countries. It's just here in the U.S., folks. It's just here in the U.S. And by contrast, by the way, men aged 15 to 44 continue to be less likely than average to want to migrate compared to the other peers in the OECD. So, yeah. Political attitudes play a part of it because, again, desire to leave became a bit of a problem, and it became a partisan issue in the United States in 2018. Oh, gee, I wonder why. I wonder what happened then. Certainly wasn't Trump. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, it was. So, oh, folks. Yeah. And by the way, too, it's not just single women. I mean, you would think that some married women, probably would want to move. Maybe they want to get away from their husbands or something. Not my wife, though. My wife loves me. Anyway, the desire to migrate has arisen among both single and married younger women in the United States. So this seems to be again, focused in terms of demographics, the affluent white female liberal, regardless of marital status, regardless of the fact that they, are in a economic situation that can afford them the opportunity to go someplace else. And all are, attempting to, try and change this country into something that it isn't. So, yeah. And by the way, this same demographic also is saying that younger women who have lost faith in America's institutions are the ones that are the focus. They've not only shown the largest increase in wanting to move abroad, but have also experienced the steepest drop in institutional confidence of any age and gender group. Folks, I'm just going to put this out to you. If you have any confidence in any of our institutions, like you seem to think that they want to take care of you, that they know everything the best for you and so on and so forth, you've already lost. You've already lost. It's just, you've already lost it. And here's one of the evidence pointing proofs to that is that apparently young people are having trouble with the concept that if your living situation is not what you want it to be, you change something in your living situation. In other words, you yourself take responsibility for your actions. John Hawkins, who writes Culturecidal, he points this out because of a apparent X string that was going on. So Ben Shapiro was being in a conversation, and he was referring specifically to New York City. And he was basically saying, if you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here. You know, anybody with a little bit of logic, reason, and understanding that if you can't make it in the place where you're at, something has to change. Either you need to leave, go to where the jobs are, or you need to work on yourself to get a better job, you know, acquire some skills, acquire some experience, become, in the terminology, in the space, become marketable. Become the employee that employers are looking for. You know, if there's anything that COVID demonstrated to everyone in the world, is that you yourself need to make yourself a hot commodity. And I'm not talking about, you know, OnlyFans, okay? I'm not talking about stripping for a living. I'm saying make yourself a hot commodity. In other words, make yourself marketable. Be your own marketing section. You're the best person to be able to market yourself. And if you can't market yourself, gain some skills, some knowledge, some thing that somebody finds invaluable. And what we found on COVID is there were what is known as essential workers. And those essential workers were people like electricians, plumbers, so on and so forth. Women. I'm telling you right now, going into the trades is not a singular male prospect. Yes, it is male dominated. Do not get me wrong on that. However, it doesn't mean that you can't go into it. Go ahead. Get into those things. Make yourself invaluable for all of that. Invaluable. So anyway, Ben Shapiro, of course, made this comment, and there were, you know, leftists that jumped up and were like, hey, this guy, you know, he's supposed to be smart. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Why? Why would that be dumb? See, maybe in a liberal leftist, you know, awful kind of way, it is dumb. Because to them, the world needs to evolve around them. That they are the center of the universe, and people need to recognize their brilliance. No. I'm sorry, but no. The real world doesn't work that way. You, as an individual, may or may not contribute to society, but your level of contribution depends upon your skill set and abilities. It has nothing to do with whether or not you think that you are super brilliant or whatever. No. You need to understand your life, unless you are, like my friend Steven Stiles keeps saying, unless you are a person who has gone and cured cancer or ends world hunger or something along those lines, yeah, your time on this earth is limited. You're not going to be, I'm sorry, you're just, you are not that big of a deal. And so a lot of these awful kind of people, they seem to think that I am the center of the universe. And so the universe needs to change for me. And that's not the case, folks. If you're going to, put yourself into the marketplace and you have zero marketable skills or experience, then you need to figure out how to gain those marketable skills and experience. If that means that you need to move, well, you got to figure out how to move. If that means that you need to find a job that maybe allows you to work remote, do that. But so many of these leftists are sitting here talking about, here's a loopy response for an example. Guy by the name of Kangmin Lee on X was like, Ben Shapiro's ideology is fundamentally anti-human. He wants us to be forever corporate wage slaves. Oh, if that isn't a red flag for a leftist lunatic moron. He goes, cogs in the machine, transient global cosmopolitan economic units with no roots, community, heritage, tradition, and soil who solely exist to serve abstract ideas, the stock market, and my GDP line go up. Whatever he means by that. He basically said, Ben Shapiro points out, hey, if you can't live in the town of your parents and ancestors anymore because of mass migration and economic strain, just leave. Go somewhere else. What part of that do you not understand? If you're sitting here and you are not gaining the money that you're looking for, the lifestyle that you're looking for, you change your lifestyle. You change where the heck you're going with this. You need to change your situation. And if that means travel or moving to another state or another country, by the way, then you need to do that. This is absolutely asinine to sit here and think that, the whole world's got to change around me because I don't want to move. No, folks. You need to make sacrifices and choices in life. And, yeah. So, anyway. It just doesn't, it makes no sense to me that you're sitting here saying that, well, if your hometown doesn't work, then maybe you should leave. Well, believe me, I've traveled. I've been outside the state. I don't live in the same state that I was born in. I do live in the same generic geographical region, but that doesn't mean that if I had to move that I would sit here and go, I am not going to leave this state. And I end up going into bankruptcy. I can't afford to live, so on and so. No, I have a family, and I'm going to do whatever I need to in order to provide for that family. I'm going to do what I can to take care of that family because you know what? That's called responsibility. That's called accountability. That's called having integrity, having honor. That's what that is. And so these leftist lunatics are sitting here talking about all of this because it's like, they don't seem to understand that Ben Shapiro was specifically talking about New York City He was specifically talking about the possibility, in this case, of dealing with Mamdani. And that's the point. Sometimes you have to give up and go somewhere else. And to sit there and not even realize the reality of the situation and be complaining about all of this stuff. Look, you just got to go. You got to go, because I guarantee you that in New York City, you're going to have specific places and here in the very near future, you're going to see what's going to happen. You're going to see what's going to happen here, which is essentially that the billionaires of New York, who carry and provide the vast majority of tax revenue in the city, they're going to leave. The millionaires are going to leave because now they're bearing the tax burden of all of the crap that Mamdani wants to make. And pretty soon you're going to boil it down to where the people who literally cannot leave and don't have enough money to be able to provide anything for the city, it's basically going to turn the whole city into something that it possibly cannot be. Yeah. So go ahead. Sit there and think that the world revolves around you, you entitled brats. That the world has to change for you. You're going to end up on the losing end of that. Believe me. All right, folks. Shifting gears over to California. Well, apparently California has now canceled, get this number, 17,000 commercial driver's licenses that have been issued to illegal immigrants. California is set to cancel 17,000 commercial driver's licenses to illegal aliens. On Wednesday, state officials announced that they will revoke 17,000 CDLs that were granted to illegal immigrants, illegal aliens, who they now acknowledge remain in the U.S. after their expired legal status. The decision comes on the heels of heavy criticism from the Trump White House over the Golden State's issuance of licenses to drivers in the country illegally. U.S. Department of Transportation Sean Duffy, that's his secretary, I missed that word, said after weeks of claiming they did nothing wrong, Gavin Newsom in California have been caught red-handed. Don't forget that one driver that killed the 3 people in Florida. And Florida is considering, or I think it still is, suing California because of that. Anyway, says that the California has been caught red-handed. Now that we've exposed their lies, 17,000 illegally issued trucking licenses have been revoked. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, he says. Yeah. So, Now, Gavin Newsom's office, of course, initially declined to specify the reason for the revocation, but later cited a state law requiring licenses to expire no later than the end of a person's legal U.S. residency. Newsom's spokesperson, Brandon Richards, pushed back against the Trump administration, accusing Secretary Duffy of spreading easily disproven falsehoods. Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Sure, easily spreadable falsehoods. Speaking of falsehoods, there were some emails that were released that show that the Jack Smith team, the special counsel Jack Smith team, have been linked to blocking the Clinton campaign inquiry. As the DOJ builds the grand conspiracy case. So, apparently there were some officials that were tied to special counsel Jack Smith's team that have been linked to blocking an FBI inquiry into Clinton's campaign in 2016 funding the Steele dossier. And with this being just the latest revelation of all of this about Smith. So emails that were released yesterday appeared to show the official shut down the potential FBI investigation tied to possible campaign finance violations. Oh my goodness, you mean the campaign finance violations that we find Democrats doing all the time? Anyway, so carried out by Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign when it used cutouts to fund the opposition research from Fusion GPS and British ex-spy Christopher Steele's anti-Trump dossier. That was all fake and false. Two officials tied to Smith's anti-Trump investigation were linked to the decision by the FBI not to pursue the alleged campaign finance wrongdoing by the Clinton campaign. Yeah. The more we dig, the more we find. Well, Thomas Massie messed around with the wrong guy. That's right. Here in LifeSet. So, Deputy Director Dan Bongino, FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino, pushed back Thursday against accusations leveled at him and the FBI by Representative Thomas Massie that the Bureau was attempting to retaliate against a whistleblower connected to the investigation of the January 6th pipe bomb incident. So, Bongino's response followed Massie's publication of a letter that was reportedly from an attorney representing an FBI whistleblower who alleged efforts within the Bureau to identify the individual who made disclosures to Congress. Bongino then released a detailed statement, and then keep in mind, this was all done on X, okay? He released a detailed statement outlining the steps he said that the FBI has taken to advance the long-running investigation into the January 6th pipe bomb incident. He wrote that he and FBI Director Kash Patel have had their hands full upon joining the administration, but despite the multitude of challenges that they have faced, one of their first initiatives was to aggressively pursue a new strategy to investigate the January 6th pipe bomb terror attack. According to Bongino, the FBI added new personnel to re-examine the case, brought in police officers and detectives serving as task force officers to review the Bureau's previous work. He said that the FBI carried out multiple internal interviews, held in person, numerous in-person and secure video teleconference meetings with the investigative team, significantly increased investigative resources, and raised the public reward for information to draw crowdsourced tips. And that's just a small sample of the work that the FBI personnel and leadership team have put into this critical investigation, he wrote. Now, one of the things that Massie pointed out was that, hey, you know, you're not providing any information. Bongino stated that he spoke with Massie on Wednesday morning a little after 8 a.m. Eastern Time and offered to provide an in-person briefing to Massie. Bongino said that the two had spoken for about 10 minutes and then that he called again a bit after 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time to repeat the offer of an in-person briefing. And he goes, despite this, you continue to imply that the director and I are targeting investigators into the case. He goes, this is disgusting, even by the low standards many have for politicians. You know my number. You're free to call me anytime, but it's easier to tweet and throw BS bombs. Bongino did say that the FBI's leadership team would meet Thursday, which was yesterday, with FBI personnel and provide whistleblower resources to report any evidence of malfeasance in the prior administration. Yeah. Look, I'm just going to point this out to you folks. Don't mess with Dan Bongino. He's going to bring the receipts. Because he points out, and here, let me show you. Right here. he did this on X, and look at that. He's got 2 images of phone calls right here in the tweet of when he called Thomas Massey. Yeah. Don't mess around with Dan Bongino. Bongino knows how to bring the receipts. All righty, folks, that is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in over at rumble.com, search up the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button to get notified every time that I go live. Also, don't forget to hit those thumbs up, thumbs downs, or if you're 3 Chevy, thumbs sideways, across all of my platforms, whether it's X, YouTube, Facebook, or, of course, the aforementioned Rumble. We will see you tomorrow night, 1 hour later, because it's Saturday, 1 hour later, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.